Christianity was persecuted from its beginning, with thousands of its earliest converts killed or jailed. So what made it so compelling that these early disciples were willing to die for it? In his new book, Jesus is Risen, David Limbaugh gives some reasons, like the fact that the disciples preached Jesus' resurrection right from the very start, that its worst persecutor, Paul, became its most fiery advocate, and that this new religion welcomed all mankind. Some say that the idea of Jesus' resurrection and divinity was added decades later, that the early apostles and believers didn't believe that. Tell me about that.
That's absurd on its face. Paul wrote in one of his letters, if Jesus Christ wasn't crucified, dead and buried, and then resurrected in his body, then Christians are the most to be pitied, because we've lived all our lives devoted to Christ and it's all a myth. His bodily resurrection is central to Christianity. His coming in history, his intervening in history as God and human, and dying and then being resurrected. And of course they believed it from the very first, which is why there was so much controversy. One of the main reasons there was controversy. The truth is the gospel was always as the gospel is today.
I know at the start that they were mostly preaching to Jews, but tell us about the first Gentile who was converted.
Cornelius was a Roman centurion who wasn't steeped in the Jewish law. And he was it was a cold call, so to speak. But God gave Peter a vision that from a carpet coming down with unclean animals, and eat these, God said in the vision, or the angel. And Peter's like, I can't eat those unclean. So then he arranges for Cornelius, who also had a vision, to meet, make a long story short. And Peter ends up converting Cornelius and his family through faith in Jesus Christ. There's no one different. All are the same under Christ. No Jew, no Gentile, no Greek, no slave, no free person. We're all one in Christianity. And that vision of the unclean animals was to let him know God makes nothing unclean. This is a new covenant now. We're all able to come together and be saved through Jesus Christ.
Your book is about the book of Acts and the first 6 letters that Paul wrote. Do you find in there that a message that anybody is so evil, so unreachable, so bad that they cannot be saved?
No, Paul was an Orthodox Jew, and he was the most unlikely person to be saved, but he was confronted by Christ on the Damascus Road and converted personally by Christ. Why are you persecuting me? Not why are you persecuting the church. Persecution of the church was persecution of Jesus Christ, and he personalized it for Paul. And so he converted Paul to be the lead evangelist to the Gentiles, but he chose Paul because he was so passionate and such an ardent, sincere person and so relentless. And so he spread the gospel, forming and planting all these churches. But no one is beyond the love of Jesus Christ unless they place themselves away from him, unless they outright rebel and reject him. But that's a matter of volition. I believe in free will. But he has opened himself up to anyone. You knock and I'll open the door. Seek and you shall find.
Could you say Paul's most effective techniques and arguments for making converts to the faith? What would you say was his best?
His main thing was he would take people as he found them. He would not sweat the small stuff. Around Jews, he would adopt Jewish practices, but he would never betray his faith. Do whatever made people comfortable so he could evangelize. It's kind of like Ravi Zacharias says, know the questioner as well as the question. Understand who you're talking to. Don't be a scold. Don't be a legalist. Try to relate to them on their own terms, and then give them the truth about the God of the universe, the Savior, Jesus Christ, because that's a universal language we can all understand regardless of our cultures.
All right. Thank you, David. We've been talking with David Limbaugh, author of Jesus is Risen, Paul and the Early Church.